Today's Limitless guest is Caroline Casey, award-winning social entrepreneur. Her commitment to disability inclusion is not only legendary, it is revolutionary, and the subject of a National Geographic documentary. And never one to be afraid of a challenge, she took centre stage at Davos, where she galvanised 500 global business executives to commit disability to their leadership agendas and launched the valuable 500 Charter, ensuring much-needed support for the 1.3 billion disabled people in the world. Yet when you meet her, she's very modest, which is an unusual description for an activist. Today, welcome, Caroline.
Well, thank you. I haven't reached 500 just yet, but thank you for giving me the credit. I love the idea. It's there. We're actually just at 456. So we have a few more to go, and it's an amazing time. I can't quite believe where we are today. And I look back on my life. I'm 50 this year, so it's like, wow, who knew?
Congratulations. It's a wonderful age, so I've heard. Caroline, born in 1971 in Ireland. I mean, going back all those years, little Caroline, and transport yourself back. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, because it wasn't conventional. You've described that to us previously.
Yeah, little Caroline. Yeah, I always felt I was different. I think a lot of people do. I think there's when you're growing up, you always feel that you're kind of different. And I always did. But I never knew why, because there was a particular reason why I was different, which I was to learn much later. But I also was in a family, I am the daughter of an entrepreneur. My father was an entrepreneur and quite the black sheep. And my mum was very eccentric, and they were two very... they lived life differently, but they were born in a sort of very middle-class world, but they were very unique and very individual. I guess also my family, we had a lot of mental health and addiction issues in my childhood. So it wasn't what it would have appeared from the outside. And I think people who have heard my story before always imagine I kind of grew up in the Waltons and it was all very straightforward and simple. It really wasn't. But actually, it was probably, when I think about the work I do today and the life that I've led, it was probably the greatest foundation ever. I have probably learned to have a sustainable grit that comes with the childhood that I have. So I'm the eldest of three, and all I can say to you is, if you were to give me one word that would describe me, is I'm a freedom seeker. I always have been since I was a child. I always wanted to, stretch those boundaries, and my parents ensured, and how they brought me up, despite the difficulties, that those wings could be maybe as wide and as expanded as they could be.
So it certainly sounds as if it gave you a really good foundation, and you used the word grit, and having only met you for quite recently, but got to know you during that time. Tenacious is a kind of word that I would use to describe you, and having grit. And I know that you've crusaded on many things, but you've come through personal crusades and personal challenges, and one that kind of I want to touch on is discovering at the age of 17, or being told at the age of 17, that you have impaired vision, now being recognized as being blind, but not knowing that for almost 2 decades. As somebody who can see, I find that quite incredible, and that you lived that. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it does sound incredible, but it's not as incredible maybe as it sounds, because let's think about all the children who go through school, or many people your my age who were dyslexic and were never diagnosed. Human beings have the most extraordinary ability to adapt. I have a condition called ocular albinism, and for people who have no idea what that meant or means, is it's a version of albinism. I have very, very low melanin in my skin and my hair and my eyes. Actually, when I was a kid on a beach in Ireland, I glowed, is all I can say. It was like white aerial glow, my skin was. But how it affects my eyes is I have about 2 feet vision then. So if I hold my hand in front of my eyes, and if you were to put Vaseline in front of your glasses, that's how I see. And as I was talking about mum and dad earlier on, and they wanted, despite the fact that our family was very difficult, but because they themselves were never wanting to fit in, you know, they were not that kind of, they weren't those kind of individuals. And they wanted me and my sister and brother to be able to be our unique self. They hid from me very consciously about my sight loss. I mean, I was diagnosed at 6 months and they had to decide where I was going to go to school. And look, I should have most likely gone to a visually impaired or blind school. But they did not want my life to be defined by a label. They did not want to limit me by other people's perceptions of what my condition was. And I mean, this is a series called Limitless in a way. And what they have always felt and believed is labels are limiting. And to be defined by anything means that your idea of ever achieving something is limited. So they sent me to a mainstream school and brought me up as a sighted child. So I had no idea that I was at the level of registered blind. And I found that out by complete accident at 17 years old, because I had many dreams when I was a child, which were all about freedom. I wanted to be Mowgli from the Jungle Book. I wanted to be a cowgirl. I wanted to race cars and motorbikes. And my father gave me a driving lesson for my 17th birthday. And that is how I discovered that I would never be racing cars and motorbikes, or so they thought, but I shouldn't have been cycling bicycles, let alone be on rollerblades on the main road. Like, I don't know how we got to being, because I have a sister who's a very similar visual impairment to myself, but she was told, I wasn't. And it was a very complex, quite complicated way to discover that you can't really see beyond your nose.
So I'm getting a sense of not necessarily being conventional or necessarily conformist, but there's an element of what you've described there means that you didn't necessarily experience some of the biases that perhaps would have been there had the world around you known of your impairment. Is that a blessing or a curse?
I love that you picked that up. It's, you see, in some ways, okay, I didn't know. And my parents have been judged both to how you see it. So I didn't have the bias. And they have also been judged negatively, going, how could you do that to your child? And so this is me. This is Caroline. This is how I am. Would it have been easier to know earlier on? Well, actually, I don't think so, because I'm not sure I would have ended up being here doing this, good and bad, if I had been told, because I never imagined that I couldn't. I never imagined that if I had an idea in my head that anything would stop me. The only thing that would stop me was if I didn't try hard enough. And that is how I was brought up. You know, you don't give up. Life is not easy. You need to treat people with respect. Like, everybody in my life was the same. And as far as I'm concerned, the role of a president of a country is important, but the person is no more important than you. And that's how I was brought up. And if I failed, it's because I didn't try hard enough. And the one thing I will say is that was a failing on the side of that is I didn't know how to ask for help. And actually that was probably the negative side of how I grew up. But on the other side, sure, I thought I could do everything. Of course I would race cars and motorbikes. And of course I'd be Mowgli from the Jungle Book. And when I discovered at 17 that I had this condition, I had a double response. One was, I don't believe you. And the second one was, I will not believe you. And so it was like, no, because I knew when they told me and when I discovered that it wasn't that I had a little eye problem, I had a fairly big eye problem. I knew that was going to potentially get in the way of the things I wanted to do.
So at this point, you're aware of your limited vision, but you decide to take a conventional job in consulting, but you don't tell your employer about your. And at this point, is it classed as a disability?
Oh yeah, I mean, I have a disability. I'm registered blind, and I mean, you discovered that at 17, and as I said, I didn't want it because I had seen how disability was treated in the world, and I saw that it at the time it was my experience to see that it seemed to limit people's lives. And so I decided, well, absolutely not having that. So I hopped into the disability closet at 17 and had the most extraordinary career. I studied archaeology, insane for somebody visually impaired. I traveled around the world. I came back, I studied horticulture, and I landed in business school, did a conversion degree, did a master's in business. And because everybody else wanted to work for the big, consultancy companies, I applied and I got a job and I went into Accenture, and I never told them. I went in as a management consultant and I had no intention of ever disclosing. And do I think I would have got the job if I disclosed? I don't know, because I never gave Accenture the chance. I just hid it.
But you had a very successful career with them, and what you managed to do clearly is to demonstrate that disability is not a barrier to success, equally not a barrier to professional success. But you didn't stay. Something must have been driving you, because you started a campaign and sponsor and raise funds for a lot of smaller charities that you recognise needed support. But not only did you support these charities, you took on something monumental and courageous. And I think we're getting the frame of the picture of the person we're talking with today is you don't do things lightly. I mean, tell me, what possesses someone to decide that trekking 1,000 kilometers across India on the back of an elephant is the right thing to do? That's terrifying for someone with good vision. And by this point, you know that you have limited vision, but you decide that's the right thing to do. Wonderfully courageous, but equally terrifying, surely?
No, there's nothing terrifying about that at all. Do you know what's more terrifying? It was more terrifying at that point to continue to pretend to be somebody that was perfect. There's a beautiful quote by Maya Angelou saying, "There's no greater agony than an untold story inside you." I had been in a closet since I was 17 years old. I mean, look, self-acceptance is not just for people with disabilities. It's for every single one of us. It is really hard to be yourself. It is really hard to be yourself in the world and belong and not fit in, because I've no interest in fitting in. And I don't want to be part of a world or a society that demands that we need to be a particular way to fit in. I want to belong, and I want everybody to belong and to rock their beautiful difference. Do you know what I mean? But at this point now, I was really doing a great job of being the best world's people pleaser, overachiever, to fit in. And at 27 years old, working at the job that supposedly everybody wants, I was exhausted, hiding this secret. I mean, I know we all hide secrets, but I was tired and I was lonely. And the thing is, I had loads of friends, and on the outside, my life looked great. But because I wasn't being me, it started to really kind of undermine my confidence. And so towards the end of 1999, I went into HR and told them I couldn't see them. And they were like, "Well, no problem. We can reschedule." And I was like, "No, I can't actually see you." And I came out of the disability closet. And that was the first time in all the time that I've ever remembered in my life that I had said, I need some help. And it was in that moment, they sent me to see an eye doctor, and the eye doctor told me, "Look, you just need to give your eyes a break. You've damaged them because you haven't asked for help. Accenture will support you. You need to take some time off." And he goes, "What did you want to be when you were a child?" I wasn't going to tell him that I wanted to race cars and motorbikes, but it was on that day as I left his office that I decided I would take some time off. And how I would take time off is fulfilling one of those childhood ambitions was to become Mowgli from the Jungle Book. And how I became Mowgli from the Jungle Book was 8 months later, I found myself on the shores of Kappa Beach in southern India, in Kerala, with my forehead against an elephant called Kanchi, and I would become an elephant handler, which is pretty interesting from management consultant to elephant handler. And there's a lot of stories in between the moment of decision to the arrival in India, but there was nothing terrifying, Ruth. It is India and that elephant seemed like the easiest thing I've ever done in my life. Sometimes what's so hard is just to turn up and be who we are in the world. because going on an adventure in India, you can be different. The permission to go on that adventure, not to be normal, but to try and live in a world that's not designed for you, that doesn't accept your difference, is much more terrifying and much harder.
I'm smiling because what you've just described was so beautiful and poetic there, and India is a beautiful country, and you've dispelled that, because what might feel quite terrifying to us and to people listening, you've actually described as liberating. It was that freedom you said as a little girl you'd always been seeking, and somehow that was almost like a metaphor for that liberation and freedom.
Yeah, like I think the hardest things that I've ever had in my life have to do with my heart and the fear of being loved enough or good enough or worthy enough. I think they're the hardest things that I grapple with. The actual physical doing of things, and I listen, I'm a rebel-hearted warrior anyway. The physicality of things, or taking a big decision to, dump in a management consultant career and do something else, that's not the hard stuff for me. The hard stuff has been to try and understand my place in the world and to not give up or not give in, and to find a way to dance with failure and to keep, following that intuition and that spirit and what my soul wants. That has and will always be my greatest challenge and passion, I think.
So those of us who are intrigued can actually watch your adventure, because it was televised through National Geographic in a documentary. And I asked you just before we started recording, what did that feel like? And you were quite blasé about it. To tell us, I mean, being followed by camera crews, kind of watching your every move.
Well, I absolutely would. I did not give any permission to be followed by any camera crew. Because I'm Irish, Catholic and guilty. And when I was going to do this trip, you can imagine what media, an Irish albino, woman who's blonde going across India in an elephant was going to get. So the media had really gone, whoa, what is this? National Geographic had heard about it. And I said, I will only do this if you give me one cameraman. I don't want to see him. So, to be honest, I'm really thankful for the fact I don't have good eyesight. So I didn't have to see him anywhere, nor did I have to see any rushes of myself, because I was not glamorous in India. It was really rough, and I have skin that doesn't do well in the sun. But the other thing, the reason that National Geographic was so important at the time, because I wanted to raise money for Sightsavers International and the National Council for the Blind, hence the Irish, Catholic and guilty. And that's why I agreed to do National Geographic. And it was in all of that media interest that I discovered the scale of the exclusion crisis facing 15% of our global population who has a disability. And I discovered and understood that I too had discriminated about disability by not owning my own. And it was a real moment for me. So the National Geographic film, believe it or not, I have only watched once, because it reminds me how much I was part of the problem. And what a lucky woman I am that I had the opportunity to fill this childhood dream. Now, I made it happen, don't get me wrong, but what a luxury for me. What a luxury that I, as an Irish 28-year-old, came to terms with her disability on an elephant adventure. But what about all the other people in the world who had a disability who'd never had a chance even to dream that much? And so that film reminds me of both my greatest shame, I guess, in not owning my disability, and also how lucky I have been.
Now, what may not come across is actually you're quite an introvert and quite a quiet person, in the sense of not necessarily wanting to be out there. But what you have described and shared is the sense of, rocking our differences and really kind of owning your disability, because that spurred you on to then go on the stage and do TED Talks. And for someone who's less comfortable in that environment and less comfortable in front of the camera, you've put yourself out there as, whether consciously or otherwise, not necessarily you are an ambassador, but certainly a spokesperson for disability, and really pushing that and making us all very, very aware. So one of the wonderful things I recall you sharing with us was being quite terrified doing a TED Talk, but then walking out on a stage wearing wings. I mean, it's counterintuitive, but it gets people's attention. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think I've listened to how people have described me and the limiting nature of labels. You know, they give you, you're a social entrepreneur, you're this, that, you're that, and you're other. But I think I'm an oxymoron, right? Or a sort of a contradiction. I'm both introvert and extrovert. I'm both brave and scared. I have my head and my heart. I have I live like this sort of tension between two extremes. I seem to sit at the intersection of two very extremes. I probably dance in grey. I mean, I think that's where all the sexy, great stuff comes from, the nuance of grey. And believe me, I think I'm one big fat nuance. So, but to answer your question about the shyness of me, which people just do not believe, I'm desperately shy. You know, I had appalling sense of self-worth, very low self-esteem. I've done an awful lot of work on it. But you know what made that go away more than anything is that when I realized that I wanted to be part of the solution of ending the exclusion crisis for disability, and my chosen way and passion or instinct was through business, the minute that settled in me, there was nothing that was going to stop me. Forget my introvertedness, forget that I didn't have contacts, money, nothing. It's like this idea, and that's a real entrepreneur, you know, that is, it's kind of like it chose me and whatever else was going to get in the way. And still to this day, until the job, gosh, I'm emotional, because until the job is done, I won't walk away and I won't give up, because I can see that it can happen. And so forget my fear, forget the fact there were times that I had absolutely no money, forget the fact that I could literally see people laughing behind my back. As much as I've had hands behind my back and supporting me, you could see people going, oh, who is your one? That I was holding a very unpopular subject matter. So it drove me. That helped me overcome all of the things that I was worried about. And I think probably to an imbalance. And as I've grown older now, and that's why I can't, I mean, as I said, I'm going to be 50 in October. I love getting older, because you actually genuinely don't give a shit so much what people think. And you learn how to be a little gentler with yourself. I don't drive myself as hard. I work as hard, but I don't drive myself as hard in the same way that I used to. So I will say the fact that you even know that I'm an introvert, I wouldn't have said that 2 or 3 years ago. I'd have never owned that. I would have just turned up as people wanted me to turn up, you know?
I think I'm grateful that you've shared that with us, and thank you. And one of the comments that you made earlier was you always seeking that sense of belonging. And what I'm picking up is that for folks who are in minority groups of whatever distinction, in this instance we're referring to disability, is acceptance goes an awful long way to allowing people to feel as if they belong. And as a society, we haven't found the mechanism for true acceptance, which you have taken that one stage further. And again, this is part of your tenacious personality, is you made the business landscape, the business sector, sit up and listen when you created the Valuable 500. You said, hey, folks, you know, you're responsible for multi-billion-dollar businesses. There's 1.3 billion people in the world with disability. You're ignoring them and you're not treating them well. And I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but it wasn't exclusively just business, but knowing business could have impact. And that was the catalyst for you. But you took that to Davos, the largest business forum in the world. It's the where everybody looks. All of the big sector industries are represented there, as is politics and such. It's a huge forum. And, you know, you've just shared with us, yeah, you know, that being an introvert is not something where that is a likely expectation, but you keep putting yourself in situations that must be uncomfortable for you to try and find comfort for others. So it's extremely selfless. But I want you to talk to us about being at Davos and kind of waving that flag and just saying, hey, I'm here. This is what you now need to do.
Well, I think firstly, I think my passion around business is that, you know, it's the most powerful force on the planet. What it does, society will follow. Inclusive business means we have a chance of inclusive society. But what does inclusion mean? It means everyone for all. You can't have a categorized pick and mix version of inclusion saying, well, this year we're going to concentrate on LGBTQ and next year we're going to concentrate on gender. I mean, it's insane, you know? And I think that was the dynamic I really wanted to break. And I, you know, from the time that I came out of the closet and came back from India, I'd been working very, very focused on creating to try to close the gap between disability and business, and really focusing on the business case. I mean, why we're making business case for human beings. And it's not just even for disability, because every one of us is going to have a disability. You know, it's 1.3 billion people now with a mum and a dad. That's 70% of our global economy. That's worth 8 trillion in market. We're a source of innovation and brand differentiation. I mean, I could go on and on. You know, we shouldn't even need to make it. Every one of us knows somebody who has a disability. But disability has always been overlooked in business. And despite the fact I've been doing this for, 16, 17 years, and believe me, I'm really proud. We'd done some fantastic stuff and great work. We'd failed loads and succeeded lots, and as you do, when you're an activist and an entrepreneur. But I was so frustrated that I hadn't seen accelerated change, despite the work that we'd done, despite the many brilliant human beings that I'd been seeing working in the space. People like Judy Heumann, who is involved in Crip Camp, which you've just seen has won an Oscar nomination. You know, these are people who've been doing stuff for years, you know. The American with Disabilities Act is 30 years old. Yet still we'd seen the exclusion. And I had always dreamed since 2007 that we should have the disability version of an inconvenient truth. And it would be the uncomfortable truth. And that somehow I would launch this is no joke, on the back of a horse somewhere. And I would challenge the world to get 500 of the most influential CEOs to break the silence on disability business inclusion. And honest to God, that was a vision that had come in my head in 2007. My father died very unexpectedly, and it was his death that motivated me to find whatever it takes through grief to make it happen. And I knew if we were going to do it, there was one stage in the world. And it's the reasons that you said it, Ruth, is that nobody could ignore the main stage of Davos. Nobody. And I didn't want the special stage. I didn't want an inspiring stage. We wanted the main stage to launch this iconic search. And in 2019, with Paul Pullman, who's our chairman, who I found by riding a horse across Colombia, we did. And how did it feel? Well, this is the weirdest thing to say. You imagine you want to jump up and down and scream with delight because this is everything you want. I kind of remember, because I moderated Julie Sweet from Accenture, Paul Pullman from Unilever, Carolyn Tasted from Procter & Gamble, Duncan Tate from Fujitsu, Peter Grauer, the chair of Bloomberg. And I'm sitting here on the main stage moderating them, saying, how are we going to break the CEO silence? And you know what? I always remember going, now the work begins. And Dad, I hope you're proud. And that's how I felt. It was so calm. And if you see the photographs of me, my hair is a state. You imagine going onto this stage that you'd really think about how you look and you look perfect and groomed. All I cared about is that I was wearing a cool outfit, but it didn't even look like I brushed my hair. And it just shows you how important the conversation was. That it didn't matter at the end of the day. I was here. That's where I was supposed to be. And I kind of really felt that I'd finally, after years and years and years of wanting it, here we were.
Well done you. And that became a catalyst for changing business. And as you said, we're not quite at the 500 yet, but getting very, very close to that. So does the valuable 500 become the 750 and the 1000?
No. It'll be 500 on the 18th of May. It will be fully announced with phase 2 of the valuable 500 and with some absolutely historic announcements. I mean, what began with a little girl sitting on an elephant, right now, what you're going to hear in the 18th of May, who knew? Who knew? And I can't tell you how excited I am to see what's going to happen in the next phase. And this is where the really brilliant system change is going to come from.
It's exciting news, and I know we'll all be waiting for it. So Caroline, you shared with us, 50 in October, and congratulations for that. Amazing life, wonderful achievements, huge courage in pushing an agenda that, as you said, was uncomfortable for many, particularly uncomfortable for those who were living in it. And thank you for doing that. But what advice would you give your 18-year-old self?
Oh my gosh, I think, I often think about that, who I was then. And I was like this. If I had my little fists up and everything was, I was like a warrior, you know. I was a warrior, and I think I'm a warrior with a massive big heart. And that heart it loves big and it breaks big. You know, that's who I am. So to my 18-year-old self, I would give her the biggest hug, right? And say, you're defined by nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not the complicated childhood, not your eyesight, not the fact that your heart will be broken, not from failures, not from success, even more so. You will be defined by nothing. And if you hold your defining moments too close to you, you limit your life. Because to be defined by nothing means that you have the greatest chance to be everything and anything. You get a second chance every day until you die. And I think that's what I would say to her. It's what I say. It's actually the premise of the book that I'm finally writing, is that to me, what feels like the most important and biggest thing at 18 most likely isn't, because your life is about growing and evolving and being the best that you could ever be. And the only way you can do that is to let go of the firefly of those moments and let them and release them and keep finding a new one every day. I really believe that. And I've lived it and I know it. And I look forward to all of the moments that are going to come after. Even this great success, it won't define me. And it shouldn't.
And you epitomise everything that Limitless is all about. So thank you so much for sharing your story with us today. It's been an absolute joy.
Well, thank you for having me.